Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nerding Out on Neurodiversity, the podcast for all things neurodivergence. I'm Dr. Matt Zakreski, clinical psychologist and professional speaker, and I'm happy to be your host through the wild trails of the neurodivergent world.
And I'm Jake Noonan, educational coach and humanities teacher, your co-host and producer, and I'm thrilled to help share the stories and the experiences of wonderful people in the world of neurodiversity.
We're really excited for today's guest, which we are going to say a lot because we're always really excited about every guest we get. So let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerding Out on Neurodiversity. I'm your host, Dr. Matt Zakreski, clinical psychologist, professional speaker, published author, wearer of many hats, including, of course, hosting this lovely podcast. With me, as always, is the TJ to my Mikey. That's right, this is a Disney's Recess reference. Mr. Jake Noonan, say hi, Jake.
Hey everybody, great as always to be here. Dr. Matt, I was just talking about Recess literally yesterday with Jack. She's never seen it.
Underappreciated gem.
She's never seen it.
Oh my God. See, I was in a professional event 2 nights ago and we were talking about what are the shows that shaped us as kids? And I was like, Disney's Recess, Hey Arnold, and Danny Phantom. And they were like,
oh yeah.
You are so wise. I'm like, exactly.
It's like 3 of the best shows from the 90s.
Right?
Yeah, I'm way older than you are.
King Friday and Danny Tiger. Next time on The Shadow. Yeah.
Okay, maybe not that old.
Yeah, we love a radio play. So today's guest is one of my favorite people in the entire world, probably the most fun I've ever had as a podcast guest, which is saying something because I've been on a lot. But Elaine, thank you so much for being here. Please introduce yourselves to our audience.
Oh, thank you. It is great to be here. No better podcast than Nerding Out on Neurodiversity for me. I'm thrilled. I'm Elaine Taylor-Klaus. I too wear many hats. I'm a master certified coach. I'm the CEO and co-founder of what was originally ImpactADHD and has expanded to ImpactParents. The author of several books, including my favorite. I have a favorite called The Essential Guide to Raising Complex Kids with ADHD, Anxiety, and More. And I wanted all the mores, but the publisher wouldn't let me do it. And mostly I'm a neurodiversity advocate and educator. And I spend my days helping parents and the professionals who support them understand neurodiversity, understand it with the lens of coaching. So we have a model that blends neurodiversity and coaching, which is I call neuro-informed coaching. It's a kind of an innovative model that we've been using now for 15 years. And I'm thrilled to be here because I love talking about neurodiversity and helping people understand it. I believe that neurodiversity is that the future is neuro-informed, and that we here in this conversation are at the head of a curve that will become very standard basic knowledge 20, 30 years from now. But right now, we're at the beginning of a really important conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the future's coming whether we want it to or not. We might as well inform ourselves as best we can. And you and I, share many different parts of our professional identities. You said you're a master coach. Can you help our audience understand what is coaching entail? What is the difference between, say, like a coach and like what I do?
Okay, great question. So there's this professional arena that's fairly young, less than 50 years old, called coaching. It's a professional skill set, tool set, framework, philosophy. If you can imagine 100 plus years ago, psychology was a new skill set, framework, philosophy. So coaching is a relatively new field. It is still unregulated in some ways. It's a self-regulated industry. So in the outside world, anybody can call themselves a coach and there's no repercussions for that. So you'll see a lot of people out there who say, I'm a this coach, I'm a that coach, and maybe they are and maybe they're not. I've had lots of therapists who said, well, I'm a coach because I'm a therapist. Well, it's a different tool set. It's a different skill set. There are a couple of regulating bodies across the world. The largest one is a US based, but also quite international, is called the International Coach Federation. So it is a body that regulates, monitors, ethics, the whole 9 yards. And so for the ICF, there are 3 designations of coaches. Entry level is called an ACC, an Associate Certified Coach. Mid-level is called PCC, Professional Certified Coach, which is what a lot of coaches out there are. And then there are very few of us, honestly. I think there are like 4,000 MCCs in the world who are Master Certified Coaches. So it's a master level certification designated through the International Coach Federation. And as I say, it's like, I think 1% of certified coaches are MCCs. It's a very small number at this point. And within the neurodiversity community, it's even smaller, because a lot of people who do specialize in ADHD coaching or neurodiversity coaching don't go through the process, because truly the ICF is still not yet as neurodiversity educated and informed as it needs to be. And I'm working on that. You can imagine. So we've done some training for the ICF assessors. We've done some training for the organization. I'm speaking at their national conference this year with my husband, who's also an MCC. And I'm on a DEIB committee. So we're working on helping the profession kind of catch up with this world, much like there are a lot of therapists out there who are also not neurodiversity informed. There's this huge need, and we're working on it. But so when I say I'm a master certified coach, it's actually a credential. It's a designation of the MCC. That was probably more than you asked for.
It's actually, I think, exactly the right amount of information, because like you said, with coaching being a relatively unregulated term, I think in the era of TikTok, mental health influencers, and broader social media, like you said, anybody can call themselves a coach. I'm an exercise coach, I'm a feeding coach, I'm a diet coach, I'm a parenting coach, I'm a sleep coach. And it's tough for me because I know there are good people out there. In fact, I try to hire those people, because coaching does bring a different perspective, a different skill set to the work that we're trying to do. But it's also like there's so much of it. It's like being in the forest and looking at mushrooms. It's like, one of these mushrooms will kill me. One of these is delicious. And there's a lot of them. I mean, it's one of those things that I think helping the general public understand what that word means, what the letters after your name mean, because I think anytime we can inform the public, we protect the public.
I agree. So here's what I would add. When we started Impact ADHD, both Diane Dempster and I, Diane's my business partner, are both professional coaches first. I'm what I would call a classically trained coach. My expertise in neurodiversity is additional to my training as a coach. And Diane is the same. And so part of what we decided we wanted to do when we started this was to elevate the profession of coaching and to inform the profession of coaching. The secret sauce to what we do at ImpactParents is, when we became coaches, we realized we became significantly better parents, and it wasn't rocket science. And so the secret to what we do is we actually teach neuro-informed coaching skills to parents and professionals. We train both parents and professionals, because it is a different skill set, but it's an accessible skill set. And so I'm not asking parents to become their kid's coach, but I do know that when I give them coaching tools and concepts and language frameworks and communication techniques, invite them to shift their perspective on what's going on with their kids, that coach approach, as we call it, really changes the nature of the dynamic and improves the relationship they have with their kids. And for providers, it improves their ability to work with students, with clients, with parents. And so this framework allows people to really communicate it more effectively in a different way. For me, there's always been this other lens that's about elevating the profession of coaching, because when you bring neurodiversity into it, you really are able to meet people where they are. And whether that's a therapist who needs that training, or a doctor who needs that training, or a coach, any helping professional would benefit from a coaching tool set. And they don't have to be certified coaches to be able to understand and begin to bring a coaching skill set into the work that they do. And that's where I think when you hear somebody talking about coaching, it's like, well, I'm giving you advice or I'm telling you what to do. That's not a coach, because coaching is fundamentally not advice giving. It's in fact the opposite. And so from a parenting perspective or working with people with neurodiversity, a skill set or a framework that allows people to empower other people to make their decisions, empower them to have a sense of agency. When we help people feel a sense of control over themselves and their brains, that helps them take ownership of their lives and be more successful. And that's why I think coaching is such an effective modality for supporting people with neurodiversity, because it's fundamentally empowerment based. And people with neurodiversity fundamentally need to feel empowered because we kind of feel sometimes out of control in our own brains.
I have no idea what you're talking about. As you were talking, one of the words you said, like, set my brain on a little walkabout. And I was like, focus, focus. You're hosting a podcast. Focus, focus. I cannot tell you how many times I meet people at conferences and such. Like, I would be such a good therapist. I give the best advice. I'm like, no, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. And you need friends. You need a partner who'll be like, here's what I think you should do, or here's some advice perhaps you haven't considered. Our job is much more like, hey, you've got all the stuff you need inside you already. Let me help you move the things out of the way so you can access the great things you already have. And then if I need to like sand off the rough edges or give you a tweak here or there to get there, then that's my job. Like, I will happily help you steer the ship.
Don't you hate the friends who come in and tell you what you should do before they ever listen to what's going on? Like, it's so annoying. I don't know, as a parent, like the friends who have no kids who want to tell you how to parent your kids. Like, there's a point where we think we want advice. But the truth is, what we really want is for somebody to help us figure out what we want.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's a coach or a therapist or both, a lot of people work with both quite effectively. The game is to be in a conversation with ourselves and find the person, the support, the resource who can help us have a healthy, constructive, well-informed conversation with ourselves over time. That's the magic of navigating neurodiversity, especially, I think.
Well, yeah, because we know neurodivergent people hate to be told what to do. A lot of times it can trigger that PDA response, right? Like the penguin meme. Well, now I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just such a beautiful thing. And I love the sort of linguistic and relational stuff we get to do, because it's like, listen, I'm sure you've tried all this stuff before. I'm sure everything I'm telling you is not new information. What's kept you from using it? Because now we're getting into the nitty gritty. Now we're getting to what actually makes the engine run. Because I always tell parents, it's like, listen, I can Google as well as anybody. It's like, oh, do you know that your kid should be eating these kinds of things? Like, obviously we know that, but like how you get them to do it and what's getting in your way, that's the magic. That's the secret sauce, at least in my opinion.
I completely agree. And what you're pointing to underneath it, besides agency, right? How do you help somebody feel like they want to change? What I often say to parents in my world is our journey as parents is to be with our kids on their journey, to help them understand themselves well enough to actually want to manage themselves.
Mm.
That's the game, because our kids would want to manage themselves if they felt like they had the capacity or the competence or the ability to do it. And whether you're getting shut down or opposition or avoidance, whatever reactive behavior you're getting, what's likely underneath it is a worry or a fear that I don't know if I can. And so if we, as the adults in their lives, whether we're parents or providers, can hold the vision for them, even when they can't see it for themselves, and begin to guide them, as you say, and invite them to believe it for themselves, that's where the magic happens, because they're the ones leading their ship. And we can kind of put some channels in place and some buoys in place, but at the end of the day, they're the one driving the ship. And they have to believe they can. I had this conversation years ago. Do you know Jerry Schultz, Dr. Jerome Schultz? Brilliant guy. He wrote a book called Nowhere to Hide. And I used to say that the 10 most powerful words that will change your kids' lives are, I believe in you, I know you can do it. And what Jerry taught me is accept when they don't believe it themselves. And so what I kind of shifted to was, I believe in you and I know you can do it. And you may not believe that right now, and that's okay. I'm going to hold that for you until you're able to believe it for yourself, because I see it even if you can't, and I understand why you can't right now. And that shift takes away the anxiety of, I'm not sure if I can or not, the uncertainty, and allows them to be willing, when you build the trusting relationship with them, allows them to be willing to try. And I'm not sure how I got there, but
My version of that has always been, I'm going to believe this about you until you can too.
I like that. Shorter.
Right. Well, yeah, it's the first time in my life I've been pithier than someone. Jake, take a note.
I don't even need to. We have it recorded.
I finally used less words, but it's true that it's not as simple as I believe in you.
I'm writing that down because it was a writer. No, what I was going to say is, I know you work a lot with all ages. We work with parents of kids and adult and providers of all ages, including young adults. And I actually had an experience with my son when he was about 23, where I had been, communicating this for years, but he was going through a major life something. And at some point he looked at me and he kind of repeated back the words. He said, I know that you see this for me. And I really appreciate that because I can't see it right now. And it was amazing to me that they really do get it in their bones when you hold that for them. And he was actually able to articulate it back. And it's those moments where I know this stuff works, right? Because they need it, and they continue to need it even as they become adults. We all need it, really, don't we?
How many times have you learned something for yourself from a kid or family you were working with, right? Like, oh, I should take that advice. Man, I'm good at my job. Um, Jake, you're the only actual coach in this. Well, you're the other coach in this room, I should say. How is Elaine's framing of all this landing for you, bud?
Oh, it's perfectly aligned. 100%. I've always seen it as it is more of that guiding figure rather than the authority figure, if you will. And it's I'm gonna follow you on your path, and I'll put those fences up so that you don't go wandering off into the woods a little bit. And if you end up in a ditch somewhere, we'll get you out of there, and we'll find out how to get back up onto the trail. So I love that you're viewing it and talking about it in that kind of manner.
And the thing that jumps at me as I'm listening to what you're saying, and this is the difference between typical coaching or classic coaching and neuro-informed coaching, is that with coaches who are really some of the really well-educated, well-informed, excellent coaches, if they don't understand neurodiversity, they run the risk of actually unintentionally driving people into a ditch that they don't intend to. Because if they don't understand, and this is true, I'm going to say for both coaches and therapists, okay? If they don't understand the underlying neurodiversity, they don't understand the executive function challenge that could be leading to a behavior, then there is a tendency to misinterpret the behavior. I'm going to assume you're unmotivated. I might assume I'm not a good coach, or I might assume you're not really committed to this coaching, or there are all these ways in which we interpret the behaviors inappropriately if we don't understand. It's not that they don't intend to do their homework. It's that now we need to take aim on helping them come up with a structure to help them be successful with their homework. It's not that they didn't want to fill in our intake forms. It's that vehicle that we gave them wasn't a good structure for them. And we need to help them. We need to onboard them in a way that works for them. And so part of what I've begun doing, I don't even know if you know this, Matt, is we've started doing a lot of training on what is it to be neuro-informed. And for coaches, for therapists, for some doctors, what do you need to understand as a skill set, not about coaching, not about therapy, but about neurodiversity in order to be able to meet your clients effectively and appropriately? Because we're now looking at probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% of the population. If you look at giftedness, trauma, ADD, autism, anxiety, just those 5 alone, not to mention, the executive function that comes from or menopause or from other diseases or medications, you're probably talking, damn near close to half the population is going to deal with neurodiversity at some point in their lives. And which means their brain is going to be wired somewhat differently. And so providers, I think it's an ethical mandate for providers to become neuroinformed, because we are going to drive people into ditches in the most well-meaning ways if we don't get to understand executive function and motivation and how people process information and trigger management and vasovagal response. Like, we have to understand what's going on in people's brains in order to really guide them in their lives. Soapbox off.
I mean, so continue soapboxing, right? I mean, that I think one of the fundamental things that I always return to in this work, and people will be like, well, like, how is it that you never get frustrated with these people? It's like, I get frustrated with my clients all the time, because I think authenticity is a big part of what I do. And it's like, you were supposed to do the thing, you didn't do the thing. Now, I'm not mad at you, I'm not going to stop working with you, but like, I'm allowed to be disappointed in you. But it's the idea of like, let's take the Brad Johnson approach and assume kids do as well as they can. So let us assume that a kid wants to do their homework, wants to make the right decision, wants to go to the right secondary education for them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because then it predisposes us to move from being furious to curious, right? Instead of, how dare you not go to soccer practice? Go to like, okay, I know you were supposed to go to soccer practice and you didn't. When I was in high school, I may or may not have blown off a soccer practice because my summer girlfriend was leaving. I grew up on the Jersey Shore, so people would like live there for the summer. And I was like, I did the morning practice. The afternoon practice is going to be like 107 degrees. I don't want to go. And I would much rather see this girl that I spent all summer with. So I called the coach. I was like, I think I have heat sickness. And I grew up in a really small town, so word got around that Matt had heat sickness. And my mom came home and she was like, heat sickness, huh? I was like, yeah. I had to get Gatorade and lie in a dark room. She's like, oh, who'd you lie in that dark room with? I was like, right. Because like, she could have screamed at me. Which, hey, I had already done it. So like, that's done. But also like, it would have established my mom as a less safe person for me.
Right.
Now, she and I had a good conversation about like accountability and not lying and all these other things, right? Like, I think about that moment a lot because I think a less neurodivergent informed parent would have been like, that's the rule, you follow the rule, the end.
Correct.
Rather than like, there is probably some context here that I didn't know. So let's explore that. And I don't have to change how I feel once I learn that context. My mom was not a particular fan of this young woman, but she understood she was important to me. That's how we affirm who the people we're talking to are.
So can I tell you a story?
Always.
So my middle kid was in 8th grade. And she was one of those kids who was very like, she would go to a camp by herself if she wanted to learn something. She was like now in med school, like smart as hell, very focused, not a particularly social kid, but she had a good social, some friends. And there was this dance, and she was supposed to go to this dance on a Friday night or Saturday night. And she had been planning with this one friend to meet her there for a while. And this one friend was very social and was constantly trying to get her to go out. And the day of the dance comes, and she comes and she announces she's not going. And my husband, who's also a coach, asks her some question, open-ended question, to which she looked at us and she said, I don't need a coach, I need a parent right now. And my husband brilliantly said, oh, you want a parent? That's totally cool. Get in the car, you're going to the dance. And she looked at us and she said, I'll take a coach. And so we had a lovely long conversation. She did not end up going to the dance, but she knew why she wasn't going to the dance. She communicated effectively with her friend. She was able to manage that relationship, all because she was like, no, I'll take a parent, I'll take a coach. Because it wasn't as important that she go to the dance as it was that she have some self-awareness around what was going on for her and understand where that social anxiety was coming in and what the decision was she wanted to make. And it actually ended up making reasonable sense that she not go to the dance. And would I love to have had a kid who would have wanted to go to the dance? That's a whole different conversation. Sure, I would love that. That would have been great. But that's not the kid I had. And the kid I had still has that friend all these years later.
I think a lot of effective parenting boils down to you parent the kid you have, not the kid you thought you were going to have.
Yeah.
Or wanted.
Yeah, or wanted, right? And Jake and I met when we worked at a school for neurodivergent kids together, and there was a kiddo that we both worked with and loved dearly, who was, let's see, what's I think the technical term I think is super geek. And his dad was a college athlete. His dad was like one of those guys who was like, I got a scholarship to play college sports. And I used that to get a great job in finance. And now I sit on the board. And his kid's like, Legos! And like his dad had a really tough time. Like, how do I connect? Where's my entry point to this kid who doesn't want a ball in his hands at all time? Ultimately, Ultimate Frisbee sort of gave them something to talk about, but it was more like, listen, like your kid is not going to come to you. You've got to come to your kid. And if you do that, then your kid will follow you somewhere, but you've got to start going to where your kid is.
So I'm with you 1,000%. We have to meet them where they are, right? And we have to get ourselves out of the way so that we can be present to them when we meet them there, right? We have to get our stuff out. We can't bring our anxiety and our fear and our frustration and our overwhelm. We have to do the work wherever we do that, with our coach, with our therapist, with our friends, whatever, so that when we meet them there, we're there for them, for what they want. The thing I think we forget, and I think we forget as providers sometimes, is that process of mourning the loss of the kid you thought you were going to have so that you can embrace the kid you've got happens again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
Every time their peers hit a milestone, our kid doesn't. Every time their kid gets married in a traditional wedding and my trans kid gets married in a suit. Every time they do or don't hit a certain milestone, we have to come to terms with that Kodak image in our head of what we thought it was going to be and release that again so that we can find the joy in being present to them now for who they are. And there's so many of us, I think, and I hear this in our groups because we do parent coaching groups. I hear this in groups all the time, is it's not that I don't love who they are. I do. I love who they are so desperately. And then there's this other, but I kind of thought it was going to be like that, and it's not. And that's my story that I have to do my work to deal with. What I'm really trying to say is the reminder is that that's not a one-time thing. I now have young adult children. My eldest is 31. My daughter-in-law is 37. And it keeps happening. And that doesn't mean I'm disappointed in them. That means, oh, well, I thought I'd have grandkids by now, or like whatever it is. And they're on their path. And my path is to be with them on their path. And part of my path is to come to peace with that again and again and again.
Yeah. And I'd even say, like, adding on to that, like, not just coming to peace with it, but, like, embracing it and celebrating it, too. Because otherwise it's, like, you're just kind of passively watching and, like, oh, I kind of am, like, involved, but also, like, there's a part of me that doesn't really want it to be this way and rather it be a different way.
Oh, 100%. And full disclosure, I have a trans adult kid. And that has been a fascinating, difficult journey. And that kid happens to be a very public figure. And so that elevated that journey. And I think it took me probably a good 5 years to shift out of trying to accept it into peace and then into beginning to embrace it. And it's a hard journey, and I love them for who they are. And I am so happy that they feel solid in who they are for the first time ever. I love that for them. And my work is still going on.
Was there, like, because I'm super curious about this for you, and I know that it'll, I feel like, help a lot of other people and parents as well, but was there, like, a catalyzing moment or, like, collection of moments that really shifted that for you with your kid?
It's a great question. There probably were many. In the early years, So the first time they came out as trans non-binary, they did it on what was then Twitter.
Nice.
And I picked up the phone and I said, so you got something after I looked it up because I didn't know what it meant. You got something you want to tell me? They said, oh, Mom, didn't we have that conversation? I'm like, no, sweetie, we didn't. Oh, well, for the record, we had it in my head and it went really well. That's the first transition of many. So there's not one. For me, a lot of it was learning. We did a presentation at the International Conference on ADHD where I had all my kids come back. It was a virtual year, and it was called Assigned at Birth, and it was about neurodiversity and gender. And so they came and kind of educated us about what all of this meant because it was early enough. It was like maybe 2021. So there have been moments across the years when they had some surgery that took a lot of conversations. Mostly, I would say it happened in transparent and sometimes painful conversations.
Sometimes the best growth and awareness happens in that.
Yeah, for sure. The only other thing I would say is that my youngest child, when he was a teenager, came to us and came out as straight. And it was kind of a joke, but it was kind of not because his siblings were like, we had to come out, your turn. That was actually a true catalyst because it helped me really understand the heteronormative tendencies that we have. Yeah, so I'm definitely learning along with everybody else. And as you say, Matt, my clients and my kids are my greatest teachers for sure.
And just can I just take a moment to celebrate your vulnerability here, right? There's this sort of idea like I think we've largely moved away from the therapist as God model, which is great in lots of reasons, but also I mean like for you to say out there as a also very public figure, like yeah, I struggled with this. Yeah, there were hard conversations. Like I think the permission to be imperfect is really fundamental to being a successful human, let alone an adult, let alone a mental health professional. I mean, I'll be the first to admit, like, I work with a lot of trans clients now, and I consider myself an ally. But, that was a steep learning curve for me. Like, I'll be the first to admit, like, when we did our first trainings on that in grad school, I was like, I don't get it. Not that I don't want to honor my clients or not that I don't think that this is a thing that's worth receiving help for, but I just didn't get it. And it was a kid I saw many years ago, and his mom pulled me aside and she's like, listen, you are working so hard to not misgender my kid. You're not listening to my kid. She's like, if you dead name him or if you use the wrong pronouns, he's going to call you out on it.
Yeah.
Then you'll go back to being a therapist. I was like, you're right. Like in trying to be perfect, I became less functional. And I think about there was this old ad that used to run for the National Adoption Society where it's like the voiceover is like this teen being like, and then he called me, and then he's like, he wants to hang out this weekend, and like the mom is like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and the kid's like, mom, and the camera pans up, and it's a white mom and a young woman of color, and then the text reads up like, there are teens out there that are desperate for you to embarrass them. Adopt a kid today. And I was like, what a great ad. Because like not the perfect parent, the nerdy, over the top, overly enthused parent, but like that's real. That's authentic. And I was just like, that's a really good ad. Good job, you guys.
Yeah, that is a really good ad. I mean, so many things come up from it. One of the things I did early when I started dealing with this, because, I run a community with tens of thousands, hundreds of parents all over the world, right? And it is an extraordinary privilege to get to do this work. And so when I started dealing with it, I started a group and I did a 4-week group for other parents like me, not as the expert, but as the convener, right? As the coach in the room to say, okay, we're going to just come together and talk for 4 weeks and see what this is about and learn from each other. And so when I don't know or understand, my way to deal with it is to talk to people about it. I'm not a reading learner, I'm a talking learner. And so I had the kids come do that workshop. I talked to other parents. We started a Facebook group specifically for parents of genderqueer kids, not because I was the expert at it, but because I wanted to become competent and facile at supporting other parents. And so I had to be in conversation. And I ended up being one of the few people who was really informed and talking about it, not because I had any formal, well, I guess my kids would be extremely formal training, but because I cared enough to pay attention to it. Same thing with working with young adults. I mean, I am fascinated by how few people out there are really doing this work with parents of not the young adults with themselves, but the parents. Because there are all these kids who have boomeranged back home and are still at home, and parents are frustrated and freaking out. And there's very few people supporting them. And when we do a summit every year called Back on Track for parents of young adults and providers of young adults. This year, when I went into AI to look for expertise, I was on the top of the list. And I'm not saying that to brag. It's like, there's just not a lot of people out there doing it. And I think part of what happens, and Matt, you're in the same space, is that when you see the need and you start to meet the need, you're going to be ahead of the curve. Because of our neurodiversity, we're seeing the need before other people see the need, right? I don't need 20 million things of research to know and to identify the gap in service and to begin to meet the need to fill that gap in service. So I think that's the other, when you talk about what are the transition points for me are seeing the gap and trying to figure out, okay, what needs to happen? Let's just talk about it so that we can figure out how to support that and fill that gap. And I'm a see a need, fill a need kind of a person. So.
And it takes discipline and awareness to monitor for those gaps. And it takes courage to try and fill them. There's a million ADHD coaches out there. That work has been done and dusted. But like, to see where the fields are heading, to embrace the kind of knowledge and skills it takes to serve this population, and also the continuing education that it takes to serve these kids. Jake knows that I am famously computer illiterate, and all the kids would be like, I can make this video game in 20 minutes before lunch. I was like, I can't get the code monkey to turn around. But I sat there with them and embraced that discomfort, because it's like, that's where these kids are. That's what I need to learn, because I need to be able to speak computers to do my job. And I'll be the first to admit, I'll tell kids, like, listen, I don't know a lot about this. I know some of the words you use, but like, I could have just said, nope, I don't know it. The end. Right. And then you're missing a point of connection. And I think that's just, we can't leave any meat on the bone as we try to help these families.
It's interesting that you say that, because part of what I've really been struggling with for the last couple of years and really focusing on is this awareness. So I'll step back. So last summer, I spoke at the Positive Psychology Conference in Austria. And what I discovered was that the people in the positive psychology world, first of all, I was surprised to find out how few of them were psychologists. I was surprised to find out how many coaches are involved in that community. It was like 50% coaches, and that they're doing all this great research on coaching. And they're doing all this great research on flow state.
Oh, I love flow.
Do you realize they're not controlling for neurodiversity or for ADHD at all? They did not know what it was when I started asking questions. I left that conference shocked by how every keynote I would ask the question, right? Oh no, we probably should look at that. Like, there's no awareness for neurodiversity. And so I came back and realized this is important. This neuro-informed approach modality, it's an innovation, it's important, and it's got to last. So then I started, got on this kick of, okay, we've got to find some research. And I got to figure out where this is going to go when I'm done, because at some point I'm not going to be doing this anymore. And so now I'm really looking for not just like, I think we've got the innovation. Now I'm looking for, how do we systematize it? How do we get it incorporated into the larger framework? Because I think we've got a shockingly effective modality that I can't say we created. I think we channeled it. We were talking about it earlier. I think we were able to blend some things and create something really, really effective, not because I sat down to create it, but because we were just kind of documenting what worked. And so now I'm at this place where, so how does it continue? How do you get from the innovation to get it permeated into the larger community? because that's the only way it's going to last. And otherwise it becomes a flash in the pan. And so when you talk about seeing that need and filling the gap, the question is, how do you, it takes 17 years for research to make it into practice. How do you get innovation, the work that we're doing around neurodiversity, into the mainstream lexicon? And I don't have an answer to it. That's what I'm trying to figure out right now. So I'm open to suggestion. If anybody listening has any great ideas or wants to take this and run with it, or let me know, do neuro-informed training. I'm open to feedback. But I think that's one of the challenges of doing the kind of work we do, where we're a little out of the mainstream, and yet we're actually serving the mainstream.
Awesome. Okay. So let's then start shifting into our wrap-up questions because, well, I don't want to wait 17 years to hear what you have to say. So let's find out now. So Jake, do you want to kick us off with the first question?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super curious what you're going to say to this. And my question for you is, what's your favorite word and why?
Wow. So I'm a neurospicy adult. So when you ask me what's your favorite, I get a little stressed out. So I'm going to reframe the question to what's one of my favorite words. And what's coming to me right now is asymptotic.
Ooh, wow.
I don't know why. I love that notion. It's one of the only math terms I ever remembered, but that notion of kind of going towards but never actually hitting something, I find fascinating. Asymptotic.
I love that because that threw me back to like the idea that you can keep splitting forever and you can never get to like the specific little numbers that you want.
Yeah.
Right? We're always on a path of getting there. And it's the process that's way more interesting than the outcome for me. So that's why I love coaching, because coaching is about being in the process of change. And the solution approach to change, I think, is not only ineffective but boring, but a process-oriented approach to change gives you the tools. Yeah. Asymptotic. All right, that was fun. What else we got?
Definitely the first time we've gotten that word.
It'd be weird in a sense if it was like the third time we've gotten that word.
Yeah, but like also would you be shocked? Like we
No.
No. There are other words that popped into my head. Like I love the word plethora, but asymptotic was that moment. So
Plethora of words that popped in your head.
yes,
Oh,
Sorry, I had to. I'm sorry.
oh,
I appreciate that actually.
top notch work. Well done, you. All right. So my question is, if you could have any superhero on speed dial, who would it be and why?
See, this is a generational split. So this one's hard because my superheroes kind of stopped with The Incredibles.
I don't hate that.
And I will say I gotta make a plug for, I actually have a superhero on speed dial
Oh,
because my child voiced the Green Lion in the remake of Voltron. So I do happen to have the Green Lion on speed dial.
I
feel like you win.
I am freaking out about this.
Voltron Legendary Defender, that was the remake in yeah. So modern day, that's the only superhero I really know, although I would say that my kid's goal has always been to just play superheroes, so that fits. And for me, it would probably be Mrs. Incredible. That whole bendy, shapy, like I'm a body person, I'm a, yogi Pilates person, so that one speaks to me.
Those are two exceptional answers. Of course, I'm just absolutely like spinning out on how I've watched a lot of Voltron episodes and did not know I had a tertiary relationship to one of the actors in that. I'm a lot more famous and cool than I thought I was. Hooray for me.
I love those moments where somebody's been working with me for years and then they find out and all of a sudden they've got street cred for their teenager that they didn't have before.
Oh man. Bravo. That's awesome. I think that is so cool. Okay. So, well, great answers. Now, Elaine, we're going to pass the mic back to you. We've covered a lot of ground in this hour, and we could definitely keep talking about all the things we need to know. But what do you want to send our listeners home with?
The thing that's coming to me at the moment, and if you ask me again in 5 minutes, it'd probably be a different answer, is that the change that you want for your kids, whether you're a parent or provider, starts with you. And it seems counterintuitive that somehow if my kid's the one with the problem or this kid's the one with the problem, then I should focus on myself. But the truth is that when we pay attention to the perspectives that are guiding us, when we begin to shift our perspective, we actually change outcomes. So that whole notion of if you can or if you believe you can or you can't, you're right. Like if I believe that this kid can't or that they're not ready or that they won't understand or that like if I approach any dynamic from a mindset that closes off possibility, then I'm likely to get closed outcomes. But if I open up possibility, and if I say, I wonder if I get curious, not furious, if I replace why can't they just with, oh, they're having a hard time being respectful right now. If when I begin to shift my framework and my perspective, and this is every bit as true for providers as it is for parents. I've trained hundreds of providers in this modality. And that notion of what does it mean to change your perspective and how does that change what happens from there? When you change your perspective, you're actually going to have different options for action. So you're going to respond differently to what's going on, and that's going to lead to different outcomes. And I know it's a theoretical framework, but it's fundamental to coaching, which is about shifting perspective and being able to look at any scenario from 100 different perspectives instead of getting locked into the perspective that we've come from, because often we feel stuck because we are only seeing something from one way and we don't even realize we're doing that. So the change we want starts with us really beginning to challenge our assumptions and to invite ourselves to look at whatever we're dealing with from a number of different lenses so that we can choose how we want to move forward instead of operating from a place of kind of default or assumption.
Love that. And really, I mean, to take this concept and make it even plainer for the parents listening, think about the adult you needed when you were a kid. Are you being that adult? Right? Because it is so easy to get stuck in the adultiness of it. But like, it's amazing. We were all teens at some point, right? And yet we forgot what it's like to be so in love with Tommy or like really need to go to this concert or really want those shoes or whatever. And like losing that empathy makes us less effective parents and that makes us less effective providers. It doesn't mean we need to give in to everything our kids say.
No.
But that perspective allows us for much more effective ways to move forward.
And we've kind of alluded to this. We are not raising kids in a world we were raised in by any stretch of the imagination. We have gone from analog to digital to AI in minutes, really. And so for us to somehow think we're supposed to do it the way it was done 20, 30 years ago makes no sense because we don't live in that world anymore. And we got to adapt to live in and raise kids in the world we're in, not the world we thought it was going to be when we were 10, because that world's gone.
And it's not coming back. So, all right.
It's off in that ditch.
Yeah. Yeah. Leave it there.
Back in the ditch.
Back in the ditch. All right. Well, I do not feel like I'm in a ditch right now. I feel very uplifted. Elaine, you remain just a beacon of good practice and better help and amazing support for all the parents out there. So thank you for the work you're doing. Please keep doing it, and we'll all get to benefit from it. And, for all of us here at Nerding Out on Neurodiversity, thanks for listening to this episode. Thanks for learning with us and learning from us. And as always, thank you for trusting us with your time. Jake, you want to send us out?
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for listening, for tuning in. Elaine, it was amazing to meet you and to talk with you and hear all about your experience, your expertise, and just hear about your life, really. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, y'all.
Take care.
All right. Well, take care, everybody. Nerding Out on Neurodiversity is brought to you by Dr. Matt Zakreski and the team at the Neurodiversity Collective. To learn more about the Neurodiversity Collective or to be a guest on the podcast, please visit our website at www.theneurodiversitycollective.com/podcast. Audio and production by Jake Noonan. Show your support by subscribing, leaving a 5-star review, and telling your friends about us. Our Instagram and social media handles are at #NoonPodcast, NOON podcast. Your support is appreciated and keeps us going. All discussions presented on this podcast are strictly for informational purposes, awareness, and understanding. The advice presented is not and should not be considered to be therapeutic in nature. If you have any mental health questions, please contact your provider. All rights reserved.
When it's time to scale your business, it's time for Shopify. Get everything you need to grow the way you want. Like, all the way. Stack more sales with the best converting checkout on the planet. Track your cha-chings from every channel, right in one spot. And turn real-time reporting into big-time opportunities. Take your business to a whole new level. Switch to Shopify. Start your free trial today.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.